Perfect. This is a sort of a crazy title, and I'm basically, my presentation is going to be just unpacking the title of our proposal. Um, yeah, let me start by introducing the team because I'm sure I'm going to run out of time and otherwise might forget them. So there's two collaborators in France, Richard Bon and Scott Love. Richard is at the University of Toulouse, CNRS, and Scott is at in Tours at the INRAE Institute there. Josiah Hester at Georgia Tech is our uh, uh, embedded systems engineer par extraordinaire, and then Sunil Sheth and Samir Sheth, a neurologist at the University of Texas Health Sciences here in Houston and neurosurgeon at Baylor College of Medicine are helping locally my lab with some invasive experiments in sheep. All right, so yes, here's unpacking this title. So we have this idea of neurobehavioral quantification. I think that's what everybody on this call is doing. We're talking about sheep, which is quite unusual. We want to do studies in the field, I think, which is a common motivation for all of us. And we want to study complex social behaviors, which I think is a unifying theme for many of the talks that I've heard so far. Okay, so why? This is the overall goal of all of our presentations. We want to study the brain in action, receiving naturalistic sensory stimuli in the real world, not the brain of animals in sort of sterile model environments. And it's interesting, I think this has been something that people have realized for a long time is an impoverished view of how the brain works. I'm personally interested in spatial navigation to hippocampus, but really in any part of brain function, the simple environmental tasks that we use are very good to control stimuli, but they clearly limit the kinds of things that we can understand about the brain. This is an example from the McNaughton lab of a maze now that's been made more complex to try to capture some of the complexity of the real world. But I don't know if any of you saw this video. This is really what we want to study. These are rodents engaged in real behaviors in the real world. How does their navigation system work? How is their reward system working? How is their social interaction with other animals, conspecific rats as well as humans, working in these sorts of contexts? All right. We want to do studies that are actually in the field. We want to study social behaviors. So we're not just interested in one brain. We want to understand how brains are organizing themselves, how organisms are organizing themselves, but presumably each of those brains is also interacting with its environment, but then very specifically interacting with others of its own species. All animals do this. But what's cool is that sheep are one of the existing models of flocking behavior. So this is data from my colleague Richard, some studies that he did where he trained one ewe that's in this flock of ewes that when the flag that's over here in the corner of the maze, actually in the corner of this, a pasture gets moved, that there's going to be a little bit of corn that's deposited here. So this instructor is the only one that knows that there's corn there. And the other sheep are sort of following. But you'll notice they're not eating the corn, they're just going back to grazing. So what has happened? The flock has flocked. So one animal moved, and then as a result of that one movement, the rest of the flock decided, well, I guess it's time for all of us to move. And over the last 15 years, Richard's lab has done a lot of really cool modeling work trying to understand how the dynamics of individuals' movements and the individuals around them control how the flock behaves. And obviously, sheep are not the only animal where flocking is studied. Birds, fish, insects. It's a very interesting and universal behavior, but it really hasn't been studied in the brain. So we're excited about doing that.
1 minute.
So sheep, yeah, are also a model of flocking. They're also a model of the relationship between the ewes and lambs is where a lot of the brain circuits related to dynamics after birth have been developed. Okay, so this is our plan. We want to measure the sensorium. So we're measuring behavior of sheep in these flocking contexts. We want to measure their visual sensorium, their auditory sensorium, as well as measuring their behavior. Josiah's lab has done a lot of really cool work doing combining sensors and machine learning to be able to measure sensorium. We also want to do neural recordings. So we're working towards this, and really I think the outcome of our R34 will be overcoming the challenges associated with the administrative coordination of veterinary and husbandry for animals that are both in a farm context and also being surgically implanted. And our initial studies involve building completely implanted wirelessly powered neural recording systems. All right, so here's a summary. We have an awesome opportunity to study collective behavior in the field in sheep. We're hoping to test some prototype neural recording systems this winter here in Houston, not in the field. And then we hope to have ethical approval for all of our behavioral experiments starting sometime in the spring or summer of next year. And we'll get lots of data. Very excited to collaborate with all of the existing teams here that are also doing this sort of thing. All right, I'll just run this in the background because it's pretty crazy what you can train a sheep to do. This is Dr. Love, who has trained the sheep to climb into the MRI magnet and then hold still for a structural and functional scan while they're listening to the vocalizations of their conspecifics. I mean, the last time I got a back MRI, I struggled to hold still. So I'm impressed that he's trained a cohort of a dozen sheep to do this. But yeah, I'm ready for questions.